join me?
On behalf of Narberth Civic Association, I'd like to welcome you to the Legislative District 148 Democratic Candidate Forum. And before my law partner and friend of more than 50 years, yes, you can applaud him, Bob Paul, who is the chairman of the Lower Merion and Narberth Democrats. He is going to moderate tonight, and he is going to introduce the candidates. I wanted to, first off, welcome you to Narberth. Narberth Civic Association does lots of things here, including put on the candidate forums. On Saturday, April 25th, we're hosting an all-ages dance party here. It's a fundraiser for Pride at the Park and Unides in Norristown, who provide immigrant support. On May 2nd, we have Narberth Day. How many of you have been to Narberth Day before? Awesome, awesome. Narberth Day is always this first Saturday in May. Rain date is Sunday. Hopefully it won't rain because I have a kid on Sunday. But in any event, we have music, we have raffles, we have food. It's a lot of fun. We do lots of things here, but tonight it's really important we have a candidates forum. I wanted to talk to you a little bit, and the candidates know what the ground rules are. What's going to happen is that they have drawn lots. They are going to have 5 minutes to talk to you about anything that they want to talk about. Then we have questions that we have solicited from the general public and from board members of the Narberth Civic Association, and they're going to be pulled out of the envelope at random by Robert Paul and asked of the candidates. The candidates will have 12 minutes total to respond to all questions, to make comments, to ask questions of other candidates, at the end of which we will take a short break, and then we will go to questions that you can come up and ask by coming up to the microphone, or I'll bring the handheld to you. You can ask the candidates any questions that you want to ask. After that, the candidates will have 10 minutes total to respond to everything. And then they will have 3 minutes to do closing remarks. They will go in reverse order that they went in the beginning. We've already drawn lots. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Robert Paul, who is going to introduce the candidates.
What's the order?
Jason is number, shows your number, Jason.
Oh, we got the number 6.
Andrea.
Jason,
And Megan.
Leo, me.
No, Andrea, then.
Should Leo and I switch seats so that,
That might be easier.
yeah, let's, so keep it,
All right, I'm sure this works. Very good. Thank you all for coming. And I don't know why I'm doing this, but you should ask me, and so I'm doing it. In the order that you're going to hear them, first is Jason Goodman. Jason, stand up. Stand up. Everybody can see you. All right. Thank you. Second is Leo Salga.
Good evening. Hello.
Third is Andrea, whom I assume most of you know. And last but not least, by any means, is Megan Griffin-Chell, who's also running for this office. With that,
We're ready.
we're ready.
And I get to be the timer.
Good evening. Thank you to the NCA for hosting us tonight. My name is Jason Landau Goodman. I'm an environmental attorney who's held polluters accountable and a civil rights advocate who secured non-discrimination protections for millions of Pennsylvanians, and I am honored and proud to be running to become our next state representative. Starting at 19, I led the successful fight to make Lower Merion the first township in Pennsylvania to enact a non-discrimination ordinance, winning a unanimous bipartisan vote years before marriage equality. I wanted to live my full life here, where my family has called home for 4 generations. And being raised in a community like ours, you don't wait for someone else to fix it. So I took that experience and I built a statewide civil rights organization that I helmed for over a decade. I established strong relationships in Harrisburg and all across our Commonwealth, writing legislation, testifying before committees, and fighting for everyone's rights in every room. That same energy and commitment to taking on tough fights is exactly what we need in this moment. Because let's be honest, billionaire-backed politicians on both sides of the aisle would rather cozy up to special interests than put our state government to work for us. 2 years ago, I did announce my intention to run for this seat because I knew that our district needed to start a real conversation early about what the next generation of leadership in the 148th would look like. Because otherwise, we might not break the political cycle of political insiders putting their own interests first and shutting out community-backed candidates. As a Democratic stronghold, we can't send more of the same and expect to get anything different from Harrisburg. It's incumbent upon us to elect legislators who will work to break the stagnation in the capital, because otherwise, we are all currently paying this price. SEPTA, our roads, our bridges are crumbling. How long has the Narberth Bridge been closed? Healthcare and energy costs keep rising. How expensive are your electricity bills these days? And how long have you had to wait for emergency care in our local hospitals? My 99-year-old grandmother had to wait hours for care at Bryn Mawr just last year when she had pneumonia. And a recent study found that for every dollar Montgomery County sends to Harrisburg, we only get 40 cents back. 40 cents! Who lets that happen on their watch? I'm a former attorney for the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. We see how billionaires and private corporations want to drain our natural and local resources for their own profit, just like they've already done with nearby healthcare systems. These are the direct results of decisions made by business-as-usual politicians. When I talk to neighbors at their doors, they're demanding a community organizer to be their next state representative, who has the relationships, know-how, and grit necessary to champion our priorities and who won't quit when the going gets tough. I'm proud of my local grassroots support from organizations like Indivisible Lower Merion, 9 members of the Lower Merion Board of Commissioners, your mayor and 2 members of Narberth Council, and several of our school board members. It's worth noting where each candidate is getting their support from and asking, who will that representative truly answer to on day one? Because if you send me to Harrisburg, I answer to one group alone, the people of Narberth, Lower Merion, and Whitemarsh. For the last reporting cycle, 77% of my donations come from the people in Narberth and Lower Merion, and I accepted no donations from opaque PACs. I grew up here and have always lived in our communities. I worked at Albrechtson High School, and my mother operated a small business in Narberth for over 30 years. This job is not a stepping stone for me, and I'm not here to build a resume. I'm here to fight for you and your families for the next 4 generations. Narberth has serious generational defining challenges ahead with affordability and housing, the downtown business district, and zoning. And I believe that we want Narberth to grow and thrive and do so with community input centered. I'm a community organizer, not a career politician, and I will continue to support what is right. Narberth deserves more from its state government. And with extraordinarily high stakes, we need a state rep that's already battle-tested in Harrisburg, with a demonstrated track record in building bridges and deeply rooted in our communities. Special interests are hoping for the same tired results from this election. Let's show them that Narberth, Lower Merion, and Whitemarsh are going to make this choice for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Leo, the floor is yours.
I believe that effective public service requires not just having a voice, but also an ear. This idea has played a critical role in everything I do in my campaign, starting with my transparency pledge to publish the reasoning behind every vote I will cast, to my recent Leo is Listening truck tour, which I launched just last week at the Narberth Bookshop. This Soldier for State truck tour is a series of town halls and listening sessions I host across the district. At campaign truck stops, I make myself available to answer any and all constituent questions. But I also like to ask questions. What do you love about Narberth? What do you love about Whitemarsh? What do you love about Lower Merion? What do you love about your hometown? And what I've heard is quite telling. There's a lot we love about the 148th district. The beautiful shade trees, our local sports teams, our delicious restaurants, and some of the best public school systems in the country. But there's also a lot we don't love. There's a lot that needs improvement. Our public transit, which is still using Nixon-era Silverliners, is crumbling. Our public schools are grappling with heightened costs, and the Commonwealth is struggling with a teacher shortage. Our political environment threatens to strip us of rights to choice, privacy, and bodily autonomy. The Trump administration ravages our governmental institutions with impunity, and our Republican representatives here at home get in line to defend his every move. Sitting in my campaign's truck and starting with listening has sharpened my beliefs. The things that we love aren't here by accident. They took investment, political will, and people who showed up. Why are our systems failing? Too many leaders got comfortable not showing up. I'm running for state representative to bring accessibility, accountability, and a new perspective. Accessibility to high-quality government services and to one's representatives. Accountability for big corporations and party leadership. And a new perspective for all Pennsylvanians who are tired of strongly worded statements. Other candidates might suggest that I'm too young. I'm young. This is certainly true. But I'm also the candidate that can provide the energy, transparency, and grit required to turn the things that we love into the things that we will keep. I organized the first student labor union in Penn's history, drafted state legislation that passed committee with the PA ACLU's endorsement, and served constituents firsthand in the 148th district office. I worked in a migrant shelter in El Paso, contributed to international artificial intelligence regulation, and stood up for students when the Trump administration gutted university funding. What my ethos means for my policies is very clear. Fully fund SEPTA, sustain our schools, and guarantee reproductive freedoms. Not next month, not tomorrow, but now. The voters I talk to want a government that shows up, one that funds the trains so that people like my father, who ride the train daily, can get to work on time. One that ties a school budget to something other than the assessed value of a neighbor's house. One that trusts us to make our own medical decisions. These are the baseline asks that our government has failed to deliver on. We need an energetic fighter, someone who's on the streets, someone who's come up through our public systems, and who's bringing a bold vision. I'll close by returning to the truck tour listening sessions. As the four of us discuss policy tonight, it's easy for us to say that we will vote for so-and-so policy, or that when elected, we will hold town halls. I hope you leave the debate knowing that I am the candidate who is hosting town halls, and who is connecting with the lived experiences of community members. I'm not waiting, I'm already doing. How a candidate campaigns is how a representative will govern. Before I close, I'd like to address the other candidates. Andrea, Jason, and Megan. It's a pleasure being your competition. I'm excited for the conversation that we'll have here tonight. Thank you all very much for coming here. Thank you for your time. It's exciting stuff.
Thank you, Leo. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. If you're looking for a candidate who, with real experience and a proven record, I'm ready to serve. I haven't had to exaggerate a single accomplishment in this race because my record speaks for itself. I spent 10 years as a trial attorney where I learned how to analyze complex issues, advocate effectively, and fight for the right outcome. I served our community for a decade on borough council and then as your mayor. And for the past 23 years, I've owned and operated a small business right here in our downtown. I understand what it's like to run a small business and to deal with rising costs, to navigate regulations, and to take risks. I understand the pressures families and businesses are facing. During my time as mayor, I approached the role with a deep sense of responsibility and a simple belief. Leadership means showing up, listening, and doing the work. I attended more than 300 borough council meetings and committee meetings, working through issues that directly affected people's lives, from public safety and zoning to economic development and the long-term guidance of our community. And I didn't just attend those meetings, I made sure your voices were heard. I regularly brought questions to the table and concerns raised by residents, making care that the people of this community had a seat at the table where decisions were being made. That's what representation looks like. In my time in public service, I've been part of responsibly balancing 10 municipal budgets, been part of negotiating contracts that protected taxpayers, and overseen public safety to help keep our communities safe. I've supported local businesses, not just in words, but in deeds. I've made tough decisions because they were the right decisions to make. Just as important, I've built strong working relationships across the differences. I've worked with colleagues who didn't always agree with me, with the public safety officials and business leaders, and with the community members from all walks of life. These relationships matter because nothing as meaningful gets done without trust, respect, and collaboration. That's exactly the approach I will bring to Harrisburg. And I'm not just running on experience, I'm running with a clear plan to deliver results. First, I will work to lower healthcare costs and protect Pennsylvanians from federal rollbacks. This isn't new for me. I've been advocating for these changes for over 15 years. Access to affordable, reliable healthcare is not only a luxury, it's essential. In Washington, D.C., Congress has voted over 70 times to repeal the protections of the Affordable Care Act. I will fight to make sure that in the event they succeed on their next attempt, and there will be a next attempt, the people of Pennsylvania will remain protected. Second, I'll push for sustainable public transit funding. For too long, we've relied on short-term fixes and crisis-driven funding. That approach doesn't work. We need a smarter long-term funding structure that supports our transit systems, strengthen our economy, and ensures people can get to work and school. Our region's economic and environmental health depend upon it. Third, I will work to update and modernize Act 120, the training program for municipal police officers, making sure our laws keep pace with the needs of today's communities while supporting safety and accountability. This means making de-escalation of crisis situations a core tenet of policing, deepening mental health response skills, and strengthening decision-making under pressure. This is about making sure our police are prepared, modern, and effective. When I approach an issue, I don't just jump to conclusions. I listen carefully, I study the facts, I ask questions, and then focus on practical, common-sense solutions that actually work for the people. It's how real progress gets made. Our district doesn't need more rhetoric. Frankly, we've had enough of that. It needs results. We need someone who understands how laws are written, how they affect our daily lives, someone who understands the challenges facing small business, working families, and vulnerable population. Someone who knows how the government works and how to make it work better for the people it serves. Our community deserves steady judgment, competence, and integrity. It deserves a representative who will put this district first every single time. I'm ready on day one. I will deliver for the district, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Right.
I'm allowed to stand up, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Griffin Shelley. I just want to say thank you to the Narberth Civic Association for hosting this forum tonight, and how exciting is not every day you get to vote in, right, an open primary. And so thank you for being here and participating in democracy. It's really important. So again, my name is Megan. I'm a lifelong resident of this district. I have dedicated my life's work to public service, first as a teacher, and then I served as a constituent services advisor to State Rep Ben Sanchez in his office in Abington. And then most recently, I'm serving as a chief of staff to State Rep Nancy Gens in Hatboro, Montgomery County. And so I feel that we need a leader in Harrisburg who has the energy, the empathy, and the experience to get the job done, and that I'm the candidate that has all three of those, and that I'm ready to hit the ground running. As working for that Pennsylvania House for the past 5 years, which by the way is the very thing I'm now running for, I've worked for 5 years in the House. I have helped people cut through red tape and navigate bureaucracy to get critical assistance. I have worked on legislation. I have managed a legislative office and our budget, and I have, worked across the aisle, build coalitions, And one of my favorite things I've done is I've been able to bring grants into communities through the work that I do as a chief of staff. And so I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. Something I want you all to know about me is that I really became into political activism, and that my upbringing was when I was at American University in Washington, D.C. I was studying psychology and then secondary education, and during that time is when he who shall not be named, Donald Trump, was unfortunately elected the first time when I was down in D.C., and that really shaped me active as a political activist, lit a fire under me to really fight back. And so that's exactly what I did. I participated in the Women's March and the March for Our Lives and racial justice marches down in DC. And then I came home to Pennsylvania because this is the most important state, in my opinion. I might be biased, for politics. And so I came back, I became involved with our local Democratic committee, and now I'm serving as the White March Democrats co-chair, where I work very hard to elect Democrats up and down the ballot so that we can actually pass meaningful legislation in Harrisburg. And so while he's, fooling around in DC, I do think there are a couple areas where we can focus here in Pennsylvania to actually get things done. So one of the pillars of my campaign is affordability. I think we need to make it easier for first-time home buyers to be able to afford a home. I think we need to implement strong rate reviews against utility companies who are raising, our rates. I have solar panels on my house, and my bill the past couple months has been, crazy. So that's a little bit about affordability. I also really care deeply about healthcare. My father battled stage 4 throat cancer. He had Medicare, and that saved his life, but our family still had a bunch of out-of-pocket expenses that we had to deal with. And then, of course, as a young woman, my partner Harry's here tonight. We're gonna get married soon in the near future, and hopefully start a family. And I don't want government telling me how, if, and when I can have a child. That is completely inappropriate. So I'm here to fight for reproductive health care and the right to an abortion. And then finally, something I really stand strong on is democracy. Another thing, he who shall not be named, is just tearing apart. And so we need things like automatic voter registration, same-day voter registration. We need to be able to pre-canvass our ballots before 7 a.m. on election day so that we can get results quicker and not have questions lingering. We need to have a gift ban in the state. We need fair districts and transparency around that process. And so those are kind of 3 of the main pillars of my campaign. Like I said, you don't have to imagine me doing this work. I've been doing it for the past 5 years in the State House. And I'm really excited to be able to actually be able to do it for our district and my community. I'm a lifelong resident of this district, and I'm ready to go on day one. And I'm really happy to be here tonight and looking forward to taking questions from all of you, and especially from Paul.
Candidates have been trying to get me to support them, and I consistently said, no, I'm not supporting anyone. And that will continue to be my view as chairman of the party. I think it's appropriate for me to be neutral, which is why Richard sucked me into doing this. All right, the first question.
To clarify, Robert, am I going first or is Jason?
Jason.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Jason.
It's instructions today.
Okay. There is pending legislation regarding AI-generated deepfakes targeting children and AI-generated election interference, as well as discussion about how data centers ought to be regulated in Pennsylvania. What in your background do you bring to guide you in legislating on these issues beyond general concerns, and what are your views on this issue?
Thank you for the question. There's a couple really important points to make here. Yes, of course, we must be fully legislating, regulating everything that is coming down the pike with these AI nightmares, frankly. With deepfakes, with potential negative impacts on our elections. There are so many concerns that we have to be taking right seriously, working across party lines to deliver something to the governor's desk on every single issue that's raised with the experts who are seeing what's happening. And we know we can't trust all of the AI people who are leading the AI push, but we also have to be very concerned about what's happening with potential attacks from foreign nations. So that's why there's a lot we have to take hold of when it comes to AI and lead on this fight. But I'm very, very, very concerned and will do everything in my power to make sure we are regulating AI data centers. I think that is a significant part of this conversation as well. So absolutely, there's a significant legislation out there that I would be supportive of, and we must continue to make this at the top of the legislative agenda, because this will happen very quickly. If we don't act now, we will see really serious consequences.
I believe Richard will correct me if I've got the system right. Do any of the three of you want to make any comment on that, on what Jason said? If not, I'll just ask you the questions.
Do we get to answer the questions ourselves?
Yes, sure. That's
yeah.
next.
Could we answer the questions and then ask Jason a question?
Now, you can't ask Jason the question. You can comment on what Jason said.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah,
I'll
no,
just
no,
answer.
we're not going to get into debate. This is a way. All right. Let me. Okay. We'll ask the question. You need me to read the question again?
I think I'm ready to go. Thank you,
Go.
Robert.
No.
So, to my understanding, the question was, what in our background qualifies us, what gives us experience and expertise to address artificial intelligence regulation? I've worked with the International Telecommunications Union for a year. The ITU is a sub-body of the United Nations. Specifically, with the Perry World House, Penn's foreign policy think tank, I studied the environmental impacts of data centers, particularly in regards to environmental impacts of artificial intelligence. In fact, I helped contribute to currently enforced international standards on measuring AI's environmental impact. And so I've got the experience to say it's deeply problematic. I'm not just reading it, suppose. But I believe when it comes to artificial intelligence and data centers at large, we've got to be concerned about three things: children, our democracy, and our planet. That's why I would support legislation to push back on artificial intelligence-created deepfakes, as well as to regulate the environmental impacts of data centers, produce data that gives us information on the electricity and the water that these centers use as well. Thank you for the question.
Okay. Andrew, do you need me to read it again, or are you okay?
No, good. I think that generally the four of us would probably agree very much on the environmental damage data centers will do. It's a very scary proposition. There's noise pollution that disrupts lifestyles of people living in the area. There's crazy water usage, which would probably benefit from closed loop systems. Using recirculated water would be very good. There is a burden on the energy grid and the energy usage of these things that you don't want to leave to rest on the neighbors and small businesses. You've got to make sure that the creators of these systems take care of their own problems and make sure they don't push it onto the communities they serve. And that would be vital to any piece of legislation that I would support in Harrisburg. As far as deep fakes, it's terrifying because this really undermines our democracy and our trust. And when we lose our trust in what we see and what we hear, how do you get the message out of the right, correct information? And so I would support any of this legislation. It makes sense. We need to do what we have to do to uphold trust in our democracy and, in fact, rebuild it because it's already eroded.
So since we only have so much time, I want to say that I agree with Andrea's assessment of the environmental impacts of data centers. I just would add that I am supportive of Governor Shapiro's grid standards. He has proposed ideas on how we can work to put things in place now and guardrails in place now that would shield our communities from such impacts. So that includes things like making sure that the data centers are producing their own energy so that they're not, making our bills go up by using energy, and by having them potentially get involved with renewable sources of energy so that they can provide resources or energy that way. It also, very important that I don't think was said yet, it makes sure that any data center that would be built is having public input, and that there's really strong protections around the transparency of where they're built, how they're built, and that the public can actually come to the table and be present in those conversations. And then a final thing I would just say on this is that, if data centers are going to be built, then I, would advocate that they be built, obviously with local union Pennsylvania labor. I think that's really important. And so that's a little bit about my position on data centers.
Quick point of clarification here. Are you going to let us know how much time we have left after each question?
Well, I'm going to do it when you're at 6 minutes,
Oh, I see. Okay.
if that's okay.
Okay.
I mean, you each took between a minute and a minute and a half, which is great.
Okay.
You guys are managing time really well.
this.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, they're already ready for managing the debate in Harrisburg. Okay, Leo, have you accepted any PAC money in this race? You talked a little bit about that, if I recall in your beginning. And if so, from which PACs, and how do you square that with claims of independence from institutional politics?
It's a great question, Robert. I really appreciate it. The Solga for State campaign.
You're writing right. It was one of the. Remember, I'm just a reader. But go ahead.
It's a great question, Robert, regardless. The Solga for State campaign is very proud to say that we do not accept PAC money. We are a grassroots campaign. We are a true grassroots campaign. We are volunteers that work shoulder to shoulder, street to street, side by side. We're knocking on doors. That's what we're doing. We're cooking pasta. We're cooking chili. We're making brigadeiros. We're not taking from big money donors. It's not even PACs. I don't want to see a person dropping, $10K on a candidate. That's not what we're doing. We're grassroots. Thank you.
The Friends of Andrea Deutsch group has taken no money from PACs. I don't intend to take money from PACs. We are beholden to nobody but the voters of the 148.
So I am proud to have community groups supporting me through their political action committees, as well as current elected officials, unions, and advocacy groups who have endorsed me. So when you get an endorsement in a campaign, that organization that endorsed you may, choose to donate to you, and they do so through their political action committees. Same with unions. If you're a strong union candidate, which I am, and have their support, they will donate to you through their political action committees as well as a lot of state representatives and local and electeds that have donated to my campaign. That is the way by which donations are made. As Andrea kind of alluded to in her answer, every candidate up here has a PAC. We all have a PAC. That's how money comes in, and then that's how we, also money goes out for expenses. So I am proud to accept money from unions, from from elected officials, and from community groups who have endorsed me and are supporting my campaign. But I will add that PAC money, is not the only resource. We have many small dollar donations for our campaign, which I'm really proud of. We've even had donations from, I've knocked on doors and then woke up the next morning, looked at my ActBlue, and the person's whose store I knocked, that it was a stranger, had decided to donate to our campaign. So our support is across the board, and I'm proud to be a candidate that has that support.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask a question at this time?
Go ahead.
Sure. Megan, I'm curious on this Committee for Good Governance, which you've received a substantial amount of money from. And to be clear, as a technical point, we don't have PACs, we have political committees. These are different legal entities, and I would like you to please explain what is behind the legal entity of the Committee for Good Governance. They don't have a website, and it feels a little bit opaque. Thank you.
So what I would say about the Committee of Good Government, this is a PAC that is from it's the PAC of the Gilmore and Associates, which is a township engineer that works in a lot of municipalities around. The Committee for Good Government has donated to Governor Josh Shapiro, so I'm okay being in his company. They have donated to a lot of local Democratic committees all throughout Montgomery County. And so if there's questions around opaqueness or accusations, I'm not familiar with that. I would recommend that anyone with those concerns take that to the State Department.
I'll just note, speaking as an election lawyer, which unfortunately I am, and in order to raise money and spend money, you must create a committee, and that if you don't create a committee where you appoint a treasurer to collect money, you can't raise it, and it is a crime to do that.
Jason gets to comment.
Jason, I didn't know you wanted to. Go ahead, Jason.
It's expensive to run for office. I knew that before getting into this, but it really is. It can be $12,000 just to send one mailer. And I will be sending a lot of mailers because I have significant grassroots support, and I am so proud of that. I don't accept opaque PAC money. I run my campaign through the donations from $5, $10 to those who can give more as individuals, because that's who backs me, and that's who I'm going to back as a state representative for you.
Okay. All right. And the next question: what is your position regarding various so-called good government initiatives, such as term limits, referendums, and recalls, each of which would take a constitutional amendment? You might want to explain what all those are.
Well, there are things that come up which, in some ways would be helpful. Sometimes term limits force a hand of someone who's gotten very comfortable in their position. And is no longer doing, good things. But on the other hand, when you have someone who's terrific at their job and is really a bang-up person in the role, it takes the choice away from the people of the community. It takes their choice away to keep that person in the role if they're very happy with them. So it cuts both ways. I think perhaps it makes sense to have some retirement ages among politicians so that you can get a fresh new idea and some fresh new blood and energy into the roles. I think there's parts of them that make sense, but you have to understand that they're not without their drawbacks. So there's nothing as a perfect system. We work as best we can and let the voters have the say, and I think that works. So I would take a look at them. I'm not pushing it, but I would take a look at them and see if they make sense.
Rob, could I ask you to just repeat some of the examples of good government that you gave?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's very important. Term limits, referendums, and recalls, which technically have been in Philadelphia. There is a recall provision in the city charter, but otherwise, term limits, referendums, and recalls would have to be effective in the state, would have to have state constitutional amendments.
Which we know are very hard to actually get on the ballot.
That's right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I am generally supportive of term limits, but we can have a conversation about what that limit is, because I think it is true, and this is an example. Whoever you send to Harrisburg in this group will be a freshman lawmaker, and just frankly, it takes time for them to get caught up and good at their job, and so a term limit of 2 years is a no-go for me. But anyway, so we can have that conversation. Love that debate here and what the community thinks about that. So for referendum, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, I don't believe Pennsylvania allows its citizens. Yeah. So Pennsylvania doesn't.
In order to get one, like they're doing in Virginia this week, you would have to have a constitutional provision where the legislature proposes it in 2 different sessions, and then it goes on the ballot in order to get it at all. But the questioner, I think, is interested in your comment on what do you think of the idea of the referendum?
Yeah, no, so just to, in case there's still some. So in some states, they have the ability for referendum. And what that means is if the citizens in that state get a certain amount of signatures for a topic, let's say, for example, we want an independent redistricting commission in Pennsylvania. Again, not Pennsylvania because we don't have referendum, but some state that has it. The citizens get enough signatures to support that. That can essentially be voted on, right? Like at the next election day on your ballot. That bypasses obstruction or partisan fighting of your government. You get to enact legislation not through the capital, through Harrisburg, which is an interesting concept and totally support that. And so we don't have that in Pennsylvania. If we want a constitutional amendment or anything like that, it has to actually be our legislators in both the House and Senate who are doing that. And so I think it would be totally amazing if we had the ability to have referendum, here in Pennsylvania. So that's definitely something I would support. Also, very supportive, I alluded to it. I believe good government is also fair districts and transparent processes around how we draw our districts that represent us for 10 years. So, the good government stuff, is really, I love it. We need more of it. And I'm, at the table for any conversation around good government. I appreciate Rob giving some examples, but there are plenty more. And so that's definitely a very key pillar of my campaign and something I really deeply care about.
Jason?
So many of the systems around our government are absolutely broken. We're seeing that in Congress, and that plays out just as much in Pennsylvania. And we must be aware of it and understand what we need to do to mobilize to hold these systems accountable, because we're asking, the people who are affected by this, the legislators, the people who are in these institutions, to regulate themselves. And to do that, you need to elect people who are outside of those systems, but understand them and also work within them to improve them. And so Representative Pam DeLisio, who represented part of Lone Marion several years ago, she was very big and upfront about the urgency for good government. And so I agree with many of these proposals, but I think we also have to be cautious with some of them. When it comes to term limits, sometimes that can establish a lobbyist class that runs the show in these capitals. We have to end Citizens United, absolutely, in Pennsylvania, and there's a recent push from Montana, which I think we should absolutely be looking at here in Pennsylvania. And I also have concerns sometimes when we look just at referendums, because there are special interests that can very much take hold and message and put out propaganda and really twist things that affects us all. So we do have a very high threshold of how we do amend our Constitution in Pennsylvania, and I know it's for better or for worse, but it's still the system we have, where you have to have same exact language passed in 2 consecutive legislative sessions by both the House and the Senate, and then it goes to the voters. And that process, I think many of you have seen play out. And so it's important that we have these safeguards when it comes to major state decisions, but good government has to be at the heart of everything that we do.
I'm absolutely in favor of these good government's actions, and it's very simple. Let the people speak. This is what I believe in. I was very proud to call for an open primary back in January and February, and it's fundamentally for the sake of the people having the say. Let's make sure that the voters can decide who their representative is, how long they stay, what sort of actions the Commonwealth is taking beyond the legislative process. These are absolutely critical. And so I'm totally in favor of good governance standards. Thank you.
Just missing anything? You want to say for the next question? Okay, ready for the next question? All right, the next question is, what role do you believe state government should play with regard to local zoning requirements, given the differing signals residents are receiving? I'm not sure that I said the question. That's the way it's written.
Okay, so I would be interested in whoever wrote that question to have a little more dialogue about the different messages being received. That would be informative, and I think informative to the policy that would or would not come out of how I would, approach that issue. But as for zoning, so zoning is mostly, there is the state has their zoning that the townships and boroughs and must follow, but ultimately, zoning really is a local, 6 minutes, is a local, happens at the local level. Any development, things like that are all happening at the municipal level. And so really what I focus on when it comes to this issue is that the community and the people who live in the community are the ones that have input with their municipalities as to what type of development and how that's going to be developed, how that happens in their communities. To me, that's what I focus on. That's the number one thing, is to make sure that people are engaged and are able to have a say in any type of zoning that happens locally. And I feel very strongly, and I'm sure many people in this room do, because of the civic associations. I know they're very involved with the townships and the township and the borough, to get involved in those type of discussions when it comes to zoning and development.
I'm an environmental attorney, and I, as I mentioned, work for the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. The Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 1, Section 27, guarantees that every Pennsylvanian has a right to clean air, pure water, and the protection of our local resources. And I think that is really vital to make sure, when we're thinking about at every level of government what we can do to protect our communities and protect our people. So the state has a responsibility to provide the basics on when it comes to zoning, but we must make sure that local control is always there, and listen to our local governments on what they need and the tools they need to be supported with in order to deliver for their residents, the people who are actually living in those districts, in those communities, and not special interests who want to find their way in and how to fast track certain projects that undermine a community's input. I'm all for making sure we are doing smart policy, and that we are doing so with integrity in our zoning policy.
When it comes to local zoning policy, the key thing that I believe is that the people who live in their communities understand those communities the best. And so local zoning authority must be maintained. It must be powerful. Local zoning is the best way to get it right for the people that live in the area. And further, I'd extend this argument to school board decisions, for example. Localities understand their people. They understand the specific issues of their area and their neighborhood. And that's why I'm supportive of local zoning power, as well as local school board power and other sorts of local government impact. Thank you.
Having been the only one at the table who sat at 10 years worth of meetings involving zoning and local zoning and questions and how do we mold and shape a community, I know the impact that the localities can have on their communities. There is certain communities would prefer to have no change at all, and that's actually illegal in Pennsylvania. You can't zone for no change at all, no growth at all, and you wouldn't want to. That's super unhealthy for local communities. But sometimes a community doesn't always see the future impact. I think the state has a responsibility for providing some baseline protections for people of a community, some baseline protections for environment, for how the quality of construction, for how things are done. I think there's nothing wrong with getting a baseline and making sure there's some basic protections for every Pennsylvanian. I think local communities should take those baselines and then discuss how to work around them and what's best for their communities. But you don't want a community somewhere, where they're just not doing the right thing by zoning, and where we're trying to do things that are unhealthy, because no community is isolated. We all live around other communities. And we have what happens here has an effect on adjacent communities. I think we have a responsibility to have some baseline protections, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the state setting that baseline and having local communities come in and mold that to what's right for them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this one's going to be an easy one for the four of you. Almost seems silly to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. What can be done to assure all Pennsylvanians that the elections in November are fair and that the votes are accurately counted?
Well, luckily we have an incredible governor in Josh Shapiro and his administration with Secretary Schmidt, and the counties as they're administered through the county level with Commissioners Neil Makija and Commissioner Chair Jamila Winder. We have assurances that we will operate our elections here in Pennsylvania. We have to continue to monitor the rhetoric and the legislation that is being actively discussed in DC. But ultimately, we continue to run our ship right here in Pennsylvania, and we continue to make sure our election bureaus are funded. They have the resources they need to continue to meet the moment in protecting the integrity of our elections.
Thank you. I think the best way to ensure the integrity of our elections is to ensure that the people who run our elections have the resources that they need to succeed, not only to succeed, but to thrive and plan for the future. In Pennsylvania, of course, this means county-level support. Montgomery County has a fantastic team of election leaders. Just this past week, I was speaking with Commissioner Neil McKeesha, and I'm excited to say that we have safe, reliable systems, not only for ballots on November 3rd, but also for mail-in voting. Ensuring that these systems continue is critically important. Moreover, as we're talking about election security, I'd point to the importance of not just the election in November, but also the election in May. May 19th, the primary, and then even before that, the quasi-election, the county convention process in February. I think ensuring that all of these processes are open, free, and fair is critical. And once again, this is why I was proud to support an open primary way back in February. In February, there was a possibility that this election wouldn't have been determined on May 19th, and it wouldn't have been determined on November 3rd, but it would have been determined on February 18th. I said that wasn't right. I said that a small committee of party committee people shouldn't determine the candidate on February 18th. I'm very proud of that decision, and as another candidate mentioned, we're excited to have an open primary. We have an open primary because the election wasn't decided on February 18th. This is critical. The people need to choose their representative in May and then in November. As I conclude my remarks on this question, I would like to ask the other candidates, what was your stance on an open election in February? And would you have a small committee of about 60 people choose the representative of about 60,000? Thank you.
Actually, it was 92. It was a committee of 92, but that's
There was about 60 that showed up.
Well, I agree with you, but the committee is between the two townships. It's about 92.
Let me tell you what won't make our elections safer. The SAVE Act. The SAVE Act will disenfranchise millions of voters by making your driver's license, if you're married, different than perhaps your voting record or vote, what's on the rolls of your registration. The SAVE Act is not going to make anybody easier to vote or make any votes safer. I'll tell you what else is not going to make it safer. Having ICE at our local polling places. The police are not allowed to hang out at the local polling places on election day because it's deemed to be an intimidation. So they're called in when necessary, but they're not allowed to hang out at polling places. So what's going on in the federal government is not making our elections any safer. I think I agree with the other candidates that elections in Pennsylvania are deemed safe, very safe because Josh Shapiro has done a terrific job. The paper ballots that we have makes things a little safer. I think we need to support our staff that works in the polling places and make sure there's no attempt for voter intimidation or attempts to, scare them. As mayor, we had an incident once where somebody came into a polling place and with a joke, made a joke, oh, maybe I should shoot all these Democrats in here. That doesn't make anybody safer or feel more comfortable voting. We have to hold the line and hold it accountable when people make threats, and we have to keep people safe physically going into voting places and keep our voter inspection workers at the polling places safe. We are generally safe, but we need to maintain it. We also need to maintain that we're not subject to any hackers breaking into our, so we need to upgrade our electronic security and make sure that everything remains safe. But in general, in Pennsylvania, we're in good shape.
So I am, I think Rob said it right when this is a kind of an easier question for all of us. I very much agree with a lot, not all, but a lot of what was said. And I would just add that I myself, and I'm actually show of hands, is anyone in here a poll worker? Or has? Thank you. Yeah. So I actually was serving as a poll worker in 2020. Anyone here from 2020? Like the masks were on, and we actually had like 3 precincts in one place. It was kind of crazy, but that was one of the most rewarding experiences, honestly, to serve to serve as a poll worker. It's very important. So I commend anyone who's doing that, and I would just again echo that the governor and the commissioners, with especially Commissioner Nurmakija's leadership, have been doing a stellar job at making sure that here our votes are safe. Now we can always do things to improve, like I said, pre-canvassing earlier, making sure we have different things like same-day registration. We don't have voter ID here. We need to keep it that way. So there are things we can do to even further protect, but we're doing a great job. And I really hope that the rhetoric going on out there, we got to fight against that so that we can continue to have great volunteers come to the polls and be poll workers.
I hope to use time to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Your time, you can use it as you like.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'd like to reiterate, it doesn't matter what our election protections look like in May and November if the candidate is chosen in February by a group of insiders provided with overwhelming support, and then the other candidates are forced to drop from the process, forced by written punishments as well as theoretical blacklisting. And so I would like to ask specifically Megan and Jason, you both competed for the insider party endorsement in February. I would like you to please explain why a committee, it was about 60 people that voted, ought to choose the representative of 60,000.
And I think that Richard informs me that they're not required to answer.
Certainly.
Right. They can volunteer to answer your question, but they're not required to. Just so they're clear. I would point out that you got the endorsement from the Young Democrats without letting the other candidates know about it. So I personally have a problem with your position on the subject.
Wait, I'm not sure about, that's a bit of a comment from the moderator.
Well, I didn't say I was for any candidate, but if you're going to make statements about, particularly because as the chairman of the party, that was an attack on me personally.
4 candidates up there.
Yes, I understand. But the issue is your statements about how that process worked at the county convention. I need to point out the other fact.
Thank you.
We have 3 minutes.
Okay, but I do want to respond to this because I want to just say that I think there might be some. So a committee person. I'm a proud committee person myself. These are the people who are in your community, knocking on your door, reminding you that there's an election, fighting for Democrats to be elected all across this county. Okay, and committee people are elected by you. You can vote for your committee person, or on May 19th, they will be on the ballot. They are not people in the shadows. You elect them to represent you as committee people, and that's what they do within the process. Now, we can talk at length about the process of how an endorsement is made by the county party. I think those are valid, real conversations, but to the point, at least there is a process, and there isn't always a process with regard to how some people are getting endorsements.
I would really like to respond more to the questions from the Narberth Civic Association, but I would just say that I didn't design the system of how political organizations in this country make those kinds of endorsements. I'm aware of how it works, and so that's why I put my head down and I put myself as much as possible before the committee people, and I'm proud to say that a majority of the Democratic committee people in Lower Merion, Narberth, in the 148th have been supporting me.
Okay. Let's go on to the next question. What is your top priority to combat climate change?
Who goes first?
Leo.
Sure. Thank you. In regards to combating climate change and in regards to environmental legislation, my top priority is updating the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standards Act of 2004. Generally speaking, the act ensures that electricity providers produce their electricity from a certain percentage of Tier 1 and Tier 2 sustainable energy sources. There was a gradual 15-year ramp up to 2021, and I think we need to pass legislation to ensure that this ramp up continues, to ensure that further clean energy sources are incorporated into our Commonwealth's energy blend. At the moment, we're close to 60% natural gas, 30% nuclear, 7% coal, and just about 3% solar and wind. I would like to see a great expansion of solar and wind energy in Pennsylvania's energy blend via updating the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standards Act. Thank you.
Climate change is a wide-ranging issue, and it crosses all the boundaries with many other issues we have. So we need to expand our access to wind and solar energy in Pennsylvania. The federal government has cut off access to all that. You can't use federal lands to have alternate sources of energy. I'd like to expand the ability of Pennsylvanians to get access to wind and solar and bring back subsidies for those as well. I think also doing things like funding SEPTA and making public transportation deeply ties into our environment. If we lose access to public transportation, you're looking at an extra 275,000 cars on the road every single day. You can imagine the pollution that creates and the problems that creates to our environment. I think across different areas, we should do what we can to cut down on fossil fuel energies to help protect our environment. So,
because I'm running low on time, according to the timekeeper, I'm going to say that I have in agreement with what Leo and Andrea had said, and would just add quickly that I am supportive of Governor Shapiro's lighting plan, and was extremely upset that in the last budget, part of that negotiation was to remove us from Reggie. Was very upset by that, but we have to move forward now, and I'm supportive of the lighting plan.
Thank you.
The systemic degradation of our land, water, and air is severe, and it is what originally really politicized me as a kid. I loved the environment and seeing the natural world around me, and wondered how we could set up so many of these systems to just pollute and kill and destroy. And so that's why I became an environmental attorney and dedicated my life to this fight, my professional career. And so I have a bunch of papers here of I'm going to go through all the bills and all the issues. I encourage you to check out my website where I have thorough plans on talking about land, water, and air issues, environmental justice. When I was an attorney at the Department of Environmental Protection, I was on the team that helped advance the new environmental justice policy for the state, and my contributions that are in there are directly holding polluters accountable when they pollute in Black and brown communities and poor communities. We need more areas of environmental transparency in Pennsylvania, and I'm acutely aware of those issues as someone who has worked on the inside of the state agency regulating these entities, these corporations, and I want to be the partner in the legislature to help lead. I'm probably positioned to be one of the leading environmental advocates in the legislature by being the only known environmental attorney in the General Assembly. I will be dedicating a significant portion of my platform, my time in Harrisburg on environmental protection, just as much I'm working on lowering the cost for healthcare and utilities, investing in SEPTA and our roads and bridges. All of these systems are connected, but fundamentally we have to protect our environment, and that's what I will be dedicated to being a leader on in the General Assembly.
Great. The next question you're all going to like, and that is...
And before you do, this will be the last question before we take a break. We've all done really good time managing time.
we all have enough time, or?
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
How much time do we all have?
Huh?
How much time do we have?
4, 4, 3, 1.
Okay.
See, I knew my time was low, that's what I said.
There you go. All right.
Talk fast.
Talk fast, yes. Okay, but this, as I said, you all will like
But
this
you
question.
don't have to take 4.
Okay.
Okay. What is your number one legislative priority, and how would you go about seeing to it that that priority is achieved?
So, I have three. My number one, I'd have to say, is regarding healthcare, because I've been a healthcare advocate for the past 15 years. I go to Washington once a year, to speak on the Hill to legislators about how to protect people's healthcare. I really think it's important that we codify the protections of the Affordable Care Act for people with pre-existing conditions, for kids who can stay on their parents' insurance up to 26, to make sure there's no caps on lifetime expenses. You have a baby born with a bad heart and they can hit their lifetime cap before they get out of the hospital. They have tried 76 times, 75 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act in Washington. One day, it's very possible they could pass. And then we are all subject to the backsliding on all the dangerous conditions that existed before that act. I would like to make sure we codify it, so if they succeed in Washington, we are protected here.
So there are a couple priorities, but one very important one to me is also related to healthcare. Codifying the right to reproductive healthcare and abortion into our state constitution is extremely important, especially after Dobbs' decision. As we talked earlier, alluded, we don't have referendum here in Pennsylvania. So how I'm going to fight to get that accomplished is I'm going to fight to elect other Democrats in flippable areas across the state so that we can have a trifecta control in Harrisburg at the state, Senate, and of course the governor, so that constitutional amendment can go through that process and be on the ballot for all of us to vote hell yes on that.
Democratic voters, the people of Pennsylvania are demanding that their legislators work to lower the costs of living for everyday people. Healthcare and utilities are skyrocketing, and that is going to be my number one. And so we have to take in turn each way we can systemically look at changing that. So when it comes to healthcare, holding the healthcare giants accountable, where they're enacting monopolies, where they're driving up prices. You have healthcare insurance companies that are doing things that are cutting off care to people who need it, and that is unacceptable, and that is the role the state government can play, and it needs to play. When it comes to utilities, we must be putting new energy, new clean energy on the grid. There are so many things that we should be doing. Again, I encourage you to check out my website for all of my detailed plans. But that is what I'm going to be fighting for as my number one, and I'm going to be more effective at it because I'm not beholden to the same systems that are entrenching the status quo where it's just driving up these prices. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to be very specific to the entities that are doing this. More than a sign-on letter, more than a press conference, I'm going to be right there with our communities as an organizer, as an advocate, using this platform as a state legislator the way it needs to be to actually make a damn difference. I'm a bridge builder. I've spent, again, over 15 years in local and state government advocacy. And you can see from my track record, the first bill I wrote was the Pennsylvania Safe Schools Act in 2012, which would modernize Pennsylvania's antiquated law on bullying and harassment in our public schools. And for that bill, I worked very hard, and I went legislator to legislator, and got not only 20, 30 legislators, I got over 100 legislators on board, over 50 Democrats and over 50 Republicans coming together on an issue. I'm going to identify the specific policy areas that we can get together on and figure out how we're going to negotiate and get it to the governor's desk. So we have good ideas, but we need people actually platformed in these roles to not just build the bridges, but help the policies get over that bridge. And I have the experience in Harrisburg to really do this job and do it well, and deliver on lowering the cost for healthcare and utilities, which is what people want right now. And unless we wake up and organize, we're not going to make the differences we need. So thank you.
My top priorities are public schools, public transit, and reproductive freedoms. With my answer to this question, I will discuss public schools. Public schools are critical, not just to our district, but to communities across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Let's discuss our district for just a moment. People move here. They move to Narberth, Lower Merion, and White Marsh because of the excellence of our public schools. When we think about affordability, I'd like to say let's apply affordability rhetoric to the institutions that build us. Affordability is about all of us having the opportunity to put our children through outstanding education systems without paying tens of thousands of dollars a year. As the only candidate to have graduated from our public school systems, I will be a champion for these systems. These systems formed me and so many others, enabling us to move forward in life, to have great opportunity, to advance ourselves and our communities. When it comes to public schools, I recognize that we need dramatic increases in funding. Particularly with funding, I think it's important to look at disparity. It's not only a lack of resources, it's inequity in the funding system. Lower Merion High School, just down the street where I'm proud to have graduated from, has average SAT scores around 1,300, spending around $40,000 per student per year. Just across City Line Avenue, we could go there on a quick, trip in the car. Strawberry Mansion High has an average SAT score around 940. That's a dramatic drop, but it shouldn't be surprising when we consider average expenditure per student is close to $18,000. Less than half of what we're spending in Lower Merion. I would propose significant changes to Pennsylvania's tax structure to ensure that all children have the opportunity to succeed, that all communities have the opportunity to give their children that chance to lead an excellent life. In regards to the flat tax in Pennsylvania, currently Pennsylvanians are taxed on their income at 3.09%, all Pennsylvanians, regardless of their income. I recommend that we change this system just a little bit so that the ultra-wealthy pay their fair share. Currently, 27 states across the union have some sort of graduated tax. I recommend that we bring this system to Pennsylvania, not to tax hardworking parents, not to increase property taxes, but to tax income earners who are making above $1 million. Particularly, I would look to the Fair Share Tax Plan, a piece of comprehensive legislation developed by State Rep Chris Rabb, to generate millions of dollars in tax revenue by taxing wages on income for very high income earners, but also income from wealth. And so you think the state's capital gains, dividends, and passive business profits. We need to ensure that our children have a bright future, and that starts with the institutions that build them. Thank you very much.
Actually, I don't need this mic because I have a loud voice. We're going to take, let's come back at 8:25, and then you will be able to ask your questions. You can either use the handheld or you can come up and use the mic. And if you have questions, try to sit up front. We have lemonade over here, a water bar, and pretzels, right? Yeah. So stretch. Thanks so much. Oh, yeah. Those of you who want to ask questions, you can either use a handheld mic or you can use this mic right over here. The candidates are going to have 10 minutes to divvy up. You can address your questions to a specific candidate if you wish, or you can ask the question of everybody. So is everybody here? They are. Before you come up, let's give them a round of applause. As I said in the beginning, this is what civic engagement looks like. This is what it should look like. Thank you all for being here and engaging with the people that represent us. Okay, the floor is open. Karen, did you want to ask a question?
So this is, I'm Karen Stern, I live in Narberth. This is for all four of you. You probably agree on 99% of your stances and platforms and everything. And my question is, what distinguishes you so that you could actually get something accomplished given the sort of stalemate that happens in the Pennsylvania State Assembly and the Senate, or whatever it's called? Like how could you actually get Republicans to do something because you're gonna have to go across the aisle to accomplish something?
We're going in reverse order.
We're going this way?
And there's 10 minutes for this motion?
You get 10
There's 10
minutes
minutes
total. 10 minutes total.
Well, thank you for your question. I agree. I mean, we're all Democrats up here. we're gonna vote very similarly, I would assume. And so what I think really differentiates me is actually my very answer to your question about how are we actually going to get things done. So to reiterate, I have served in the Pennsylvania House as a legislative staffer for the past 5 years, starting in constituent services and now working my way up to chief of staff. I have worked in a one of our municipalities that I represent currently through my job. Well, actually not anymore. They were Republican controlled, that municipality. They're not anymore because we flipped it. But working with that municipality to bring grants into their district, to hear what their priorities are. I've also worked on bipartisan legislation that has Republicans on it. So really just being in the job that I am gives me the understanding and ability to have been working with legislators across both aisles. And I would also just add that I think it's really important, that's very important that we know how to work across the aisle and get things done. But I also think that it's equally as important that we really use our platforms to push to elect more Democrats so that we can, not deal with obstructionists of Republicans. And I have shown time and again in my experience and my commitments to helping elect Democrats in flippable districts that I am prepared to do that as well. So I have both of those that how I would answer your question. Let's try to flip and do our best. And when we have to work across the aisle, I do have that experience to do that, and I've been working for the past 5 years in the Pennsylvania House.
Thanks, Karen. You know I've been the mayor of Narberth, for 8 years, plus on borough council for 2 years. I've been an elected official for a decade. I have worked with people with very different opinions. Even in the same party, you can have different opinions and go back and forth. You do your best to advocate, to let them know, the benefits to everybody. You learn how to horse wrangle if you can. The whole thing with SEPTA funding. How are we going to solve the SEPTA funding? Because the people in the middle of the state have no interest in giving Pennsylvania, the people in the southeastern district, $200 million. So let's be very transactional about this. Let's find out what do they need in the middle of the state. And what they need, if you read Josh's rural healthcare plan, they need medical facilities. They're desperately, we are the third largest rural population in America. They are, more than 50% of them are more than 30 minutes away from a healthcare center. They desperately need medical facilities. A farmer has a heart attack out there, he's in trouble. He can't get to a place where he can be safe. Maternal health rates are horrible out there. They have high rates of drug abuse. They have high rates of not caring for chronic conditions such as diabetes. We get them what they need, tangible, transactional things that they need in exchange for them giving us, we give them the votes for that, in exchange for them giving us the votes for SEPTA, for public transportation. You make it transactional. I don't want to go to Harrisburg to play politics. I have no interest in that. I want to go to Harrisburg to solve problems. That's why I was a mayor. That's what I did. I took issues, we found solutions, we implemented the solutions, we got results. I'm going to Harrisburg to get results, to get problems solved. And if we can do that, then everybody wins. Everybody wins. We got to get them tangibly what they need in exchange for their votes, for us to get tangibly what we need. And in exchange, we help everybody, and it works. So I think you get down to brass tacks, and you get, as Josh says, get shit done.
There are two answers to the question of how we're actually going to get stuff done in Harrisburg, and I very much appreciate the question, thank you. My first answer is to point to my specific experience with negotiation. At the University of Pennsylvania, I was on the bargaining committee of the first student union at Penn. Mind you, Penn is the largest employer in southeastern Pennsylvania, the largest landowner in the Common Core in the county of Philadelphia, and also, as a side note, the largest non-taxpayer. In my position with the Resident Advisors Union, I sat across the table from union lawyers. I watched as they played hardball. I watched as they tried to bring up distractions. I stood firm with my crew and we were able to win a historic contract. We were able to get great success for our union workers, and I'm proud to have been a card-carrying union member. Further, this successful negotiation with the university supported the unionization efforts of graduate students who recently were victorious in their own contract. So number one, I would point to my specific expertise and experience in negotiating with other powerful entities, particularly Senate Republicans, University of Pennsylvania. And then number two, I bring a new perspective that would strengthen our party. Right now, in the House and in the Senate, in the General Assembly in Pennsylvania, there's not an elected Democrat within a decade of my age. I would bring a fundamentally new look. Currently, all of the youngest representatives are Republicans. All of the 20-year-old representatives are Republicans. We're leaving too much on the table. Let's change that. Let's bring young energy. It's not just my age. It's the fact that I've been endorsed by the College Democrats of America, the official collegiate affiliate of the DNC, by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania College Democrats, by high school Democrats of Pennsylvania, by the Democrats at Bryn Mawr College, by the Democrats at Haverford College, just to name a few. I'm bringing negotiation experience and a new perspective that will strengthen our party. Thank you.
There are two ways we're going to start the next legislative session in Pennsylvania. Either we have a trifecta and can actually get stuff done that we have as big ticket items, or we're going to continue this divided legislature where, we remain the majority in the state house and we have the governorship, and we will still have to work on how we negotiate with Senate Republicans. I'm not going to Harrisburg to be a fall-in-line flamethrower. I'm going to be someone who continues my work as a bridge builder, not in just name. You can look through my phone. I have House and Senate Republican and Democratic leaders. I have been operating in Harrisburg as an advocate for over 15 years in senior legislative advocacy. I have these relationships because they know they can trust me. They have working relationships with me already, and I would be going to Harrisburg not as just a general first-year lawmaker, but someone who brings this wealth of bipartisan and nonpartisan work ethic to me. Because I know I will stand on the stage with a Republican if we get SEPTA funding. There are so many different, it's called budget trades. There's an issue where the different caucuses, they want to negotiate on a budget item. And so sometimes that can, be something that works out positively, like getting Sunday hunting enacted in Pennsylvania, and then we have significant funding for gun violence prevention in Pennsylvania. That was a big win last year. I have a track record, as I mentioned, with the Pennsylvania Safe Schools Act. I have for years killed these awful attacks, these culture war attacks in the legislature, especially when it comes to healthcare for young trans Pennsylvanians. I founded and led the Pennsylvania Values Campaign, which is a continuation on my work on non-discrimination issues. But working within that as an economic issue, I was able to bring public support from the Republican chair, then chair of the Labor and Industry Committee, to support the bill, and bringing that kind of coalition together with over 35 regional chambers of commerce, so nearly 50 colleges and universities across the state, Fortune 500 companies, building this coalition and taking out the partisan rhetoric from that battle. I was able to get people who might not normally have come together to stand up on an issue of real importance for our communities. And so I will continue to use my relationships for the benefit of getting things done for our district. That's something I have. Again, I'm the only one who has done this for over 15 years as an advocate, and I bring such incredible skill and experience to this that I want to use it to fight for our communities.
All right, thank you. Who's next? Hold on, I'll bring you the mic. Unless you want to use that one. That's fine. It doesn't say this one. That's.
Okay, thank you. We're all Democrats in this room, and we all probably have the similar values and issues that we would work on, and you can pretty much count on, loyal Democrats like us to show up and vote. Do you guys have any plans or strategies for how to engage the masses of people who don't usually vote, but probably actually do have the same wishes for good health care, decent environment, etc.? I think they're pretty broadly agreed with policy, but do you have any strategies for revitalizing the party by bringing in new voters?
I think in this environment, I don't think there's a person in this country who hasn't gone to the grocery store and said, holy, what is that in my bill? I used to go from $30 bills at the grocery store to regularly $60 bills. Filling up my gas tank is incredibly high, and it's going to go higher. People have at kitchen table issues. Hardworking people are struggling. We're struggling, and they're waking up. And I think if we put forward specific ideas on how to adjust and address a lot of these issues, it's going to be a lot more effective for them. People say, oh, politicians are all the same. And you hear that all the time. They're all the same. You know what? I'm putting forward, and if you go to AndreaForStateRep.com, I'm in the process of updating my website with specific ideas on what we're going to do to address the high cost of living, the high cost of healthcare, the high cost of utilities. These are everyday issues that are affecting everybody. And so when they can see some hope and when they can see some light, I'm hoping that it clicks with them and that this means something and this is something I want to get behind. You talk about general ideas. Ideas are wonderful, but they're a dime a dozen. It's doing the work. And I've done the work, and I've gotten the results. And I think that's the difference between me and others on this panel. I'm someone who's been in elected office. I've got stuff done. I have results to show, and I'm very proud of it. And I'd like to go to Harrisburg and do for Harrisburg what I've done for this community.
Certainly, I appreciate the question about how do we engage people who aren't voting? How do we engage people who are engaged? And, I'll say this, who's not voting? Who's not at the local civic event? I'm, kind of unfortunate to say that it's my peers. It's other young people. That's who's not voting. Close to 60% of my generation is not registered with either political party. That is terrible, and that's something we need to change. Democrats have, been losing essentially the voter registration battle in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And part of that is we're not attracting young people. I think there's a couple reasons for this. One, I think it's a system that encourages early insider decisions, such as the convention in February. I also think it's a system that encourages a wait your turn mentality. As I said previously, there's not a Democrat elected in Harrisburg within a decade of my age. There are young Republicans. All of the youngest representatives are Republicans. All of the 20-year-old representatives are Republicans. If we want young people to show out, and we need young people to show out, let's give them a representative who represents them. There's close to 4 million Pennsylvanians under 30. There's not a Democratic representative in the General Assembly who's also under 30. Let's change that. There's so much energy. There's so much energy in our age group. There's so much energy in my generation. My campaign director is the president of Penn Democrats. My communications director is the president of St. Joe's Democrats. They're young people who are tapped in, engaged, that want to make a difference. But if they don't see themselves in the halls of power, if they don't see themselves in the committee process, why would they be engaged? We need to change that. I appreciate the question. Thank you.
With a community organizer as a state rep, you will see me bring you everywhere I go. I will be someone who is authentic and real with you, and that's what brings people hope. That's what brings people engagement and feel like they can trust the system again. And when we continue to have folks in these offices who are not meeting that moment, we are losing people in registration. We are losing people coming to the actual polling booths. And so I am someone who will make sure that we're meeting people where they're at. I will make sure that folks who are experiencing issues, those closest to the problems are closest to the solutions and closest to the office, to make sure that they're informing me about how we can guide this platform to be effective to help people. And that's what this should be about. Thank you. It's a good question.
Thank you for your question. I definitely want to point out that I think that this race in particular, having a lot of young candidates in this race is bringing, energy to the entire state, to our area. I think that's where we start. I'm very proud to sit up here and have young candidates be on the ballot. I think that's very important. That's a huge start. What I would say is, I think how we bring in new voters is by meeting them where they are, by getting out there, by knocking the doors, which of course I'm doing right now for my campaign, but I have been doing for years as a committee person and co-chair of the White Marsh Democrats. We have brought in new volunteers. We have continued to increase, our turnout and, bring awareness to how we can elect more Democrats is what we need. And I have been doing that work for years now. I also think we need to give them a reason to show up. And I think tonight we talked a lot about some policy issues that could do that. And then I just want to also say there is work. There is work being done. I want to give a shout out right here in Montgomery County to our Montgomery County Young Democrats who have reformed after years and are doing the work to try to bring in young people into the fold. And so I would encourage any young person in this county to get involved with the Montgomery County Young Democrats, and for ones who are young at heart, but unfortunately are above 40, that's the rules of the Young Democrats, to encourage young Democrats in your life to get involved because they are doing great work, and I'm proud to be a Montgomery County Young Democrat.
Who else would like to ask a question? Oh, okay, we can pass it back.
My question is for all four of you. This is an issue there's people very important to them and to me. How do you propose to combat gerrymandering so that everyone in the state has equal representation in the state?
Absolutely. It's a great question. I think the best way to combat gerrymandering is to ensure that maps are drawn by nonpartisan citizen commissions, and these nonpartisan citizen commissions must have direct, clear, and measurable objectives to ensure that their districts are effectively representative and not effectively artificial. I think that's critically important. I believe the best way to support the creation of these commissions is to work with existing structures in county government to select, interested neighbors, essentially, that want to help draw the maps. I think as much as we can take the map drawings out of the hands of politicians, the better off we are. Thank you.
Without fair districts, we don't have a fair democracy. We need communities to make sure they are represented fully and authentically in their legislative offices. This is an interesting point because I can share some of my master's degree work. So my master's from the University of Pennsylvania was in urban spatial analytics, and my professors and the work that we did is all the mapping tools and the analytics behind how we actually have the technology to do this so much better. So looking at the citizens committees, looking at commissions, looking at how we can actually use the tools that exist now to ensure transparently that we have the right districts for every level of office is absolutely vital. I will be an advocate to make sure that we have, again, fair districts in Pennsylvania using the best practices that we've seen from other states. And if we have to continue to innovate to make sure that no MAGA or Trump influence is going to infiltrate that process, we need to continue to meet the moment when it comes, again, to ensuring fair districts.
I would thank you for your question. I think it's really important, and I'm glad. I bet if we had this forum, 5-8 years ago, no, we wouldn't even know what gerrymandering was. A lot of people wouldn't know what it is, and now it's in the limelight, as it should be, rightfully so. I think the best way to combat it is to have an independent redistricting commission that has, transparent processes and clear guidelines on our districts, so we don't pack and crack them. I mean, we can, get into the details of it. But what I would say is, I have been a volunteer personally with Fair Districts PA, which is an organization nonpartisan fighting for this very thing, for an independent redistricting commission. I have gone to the Capitol with them for lobby days, where we put up the crazy maps and educated people, where we've dropped literature off at legislators' offices to educate them on the issue as well and push for an independent redistricting commission. I volunteered outside the polls with Fair Districts PA, encouraging voters to sign on to the petition to show that Pennsylvanians support this. And without fair districts, it's really hard, it's really fundamental, because if we don't have fair districts, a lot of what we talked about tonight, to be blunt, is going to be hard to pass. So it is really a fundamental need for our state, and I think it has been weaponized, especially at the federal level, what's going on, just like this tit for tat of like, and it's both parties. I mean, and I know that, we're doing what we have to do to fight back, but it really is just detrimental to democracy, and I have shown through my work with Fair Districts PA that this is a top issue for me, and that's how I think we can combat it, is with that redistricting commission.
So I don't think I have anything to add that's different than what everybody else has said up here. Gerrymandering waters down certain votes and it elevates others. It's anti-democratic, and it's not fair to any of us. And while some people may like it because it elevates their votes and makes it more powerful because there are less people in a district, it's just ultimately unfair and it's undemocratic. And I'm in favor of all the same things that others have said, the independent commissions to redraw the maps and get identifiably, quantifiably fair districts drawn so that everybody's say equals approximately the same as every other person.
Okay. Who else would like to ask a question? Come on up. Or you can do it the lazy way.
All right, so I think, talking to people, I think a lot of us were struck by how much agreement there was on the issues. I mean, it makes sense, we're all Democrats. So I guess my question is, what is an issue where you think you disagree with your fellow candidates? And I'd rather you avoid discussions about the election process or fundraising. What's an issue, that you would be voting on in Harrisburg that you think you disagree with your fellow candidates?
Thank you for that question, Fred. Appreciate it. Yes, I think there's a number of policy areas in which we do share a lot of agreement with, and I would, posit more about differences in experience and the platform on how which we are going to affect the change. But to your question, my priorities have been very consistent since the beginning of this campaign: lowering the cost for healthcare and utilities, protecting our environment, and investing in SEPTA in our roads and bridges. And I think one issue where I've been talking a little bit more about, which now I think others are starting to talk about is the concerns with AI data centers. I've been very upfront with my deep concerns with them, and even on the day of the Democratic Forum, I said, yes, we have the grid standards from the governor, and this is where we should start, but I want to see more. I don't want to just stop there. I would be interested in to see how we could put a pause as best we can on some of these projects so we can really get the regulations and the legal protections right. And I think that's something I've been a little bit more, or significantly more talking about.
Certainly, I appreciate the question. One thing that I think I would disagree with the other candidates on right now is how we're going to fund the legislation we're all very excited about. I am the only candidate to really put forward a call for comprehensive additional tax, to call for comprehensive fair tax reform. I'm not afraid to say it. It's unpopular. This is a wealthy district in many ways, but I would want to tax the wealthy more in Pennsylvania. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm proud to style myself as a progressive. I'm proud to style myself as a leftist and say, look, the wealthy need to pay their fair share. As I spoke earlier about, I think we need to raise the flat tax, change the flat tax to a graduated tax, for the highest income earners in terms of wages earned and income, and then have additional taxes as well on income from wealth, including passive business profits, capital gains, dividends, royalties, etc. And so, I think that's a serious point of differentiation between myself and the other candidates. Thank you.
I'll tell you one issue that I'm the only one that's raised entirely throughout this entire campaign is addressing Act 120. And I'm the only one here that has actually run a police force. And I transformed the Narberth police force from when I came in. When I came in, it was very much an old-style police force in the style of old Narberth. And people who've been here in a long time can understand, read through that statement and understand what I mean. It was unprofessional, frankly. And there is a big quality of life difference when you have a working community police force that is fair, that treats people with mental health issues, that de-escalates conflict, that acts appropriately and provides good services. And in fact, it hasn't come up because our police force is running so smoothly, it's kind of in the background now. But that wasn't always the case. During my tenure, there were times when we had, protests about how police were acting in different parts of the area and around the country. It takes a well-qualified, well-trained police force to serve a community well and be in the background and not be the front concern on everybody's mind. And the fact that it is in our background is a testament to what I've done with the force and gotten the right training and made it just a comfortable part of our community. I think every community in the district deserves that kind of attention. We need to update the training, modernize our training, get mental health, training so that they know how to deal with crisis situations, including people with things like autism or disabilities, and how do you deal with people who have different all kinds of mental health concerns. I think that's a priority, and that's something I'm the only one who's even talked about. And I think it's really, really important. I want to make it run in the background comfortably for everybody in the district.
Thank you for your question. I think it's interesting going last for this question because I had the opportunity to listen to the other three candidates, and honestly, I agree with the other three candidates. That's the truth. I don't know that there are things we don't that I know of anyway. I'm sure if we got together, we should do that. Get together for lunch and just really get into all of it, what we disagree on. But I think how I would answer your question, though, is really the differentiation comes when you look at what each candidate's what their main three pillars of their campaign are, or what their focus would be in Harrisburg. And so where I might differ potentially is the committees that I would choose to serve on. So I would want to serve on the health committee. I've talked about how healthcare is really important personally, and also, on the doors, I'm hearing how important healthcare is and accessible and affordability of that. So I want to be on the health committee. I want to be on the housing and community development committee because I'm really passionate about affordability and affordable housing. And then I want to be on the transportation committee because we have a lot of roads and bridges here in Pennsylvania. I think that's a way around where we could kind of come together with Republicans potentially on public transit funding and then also our transportation funding across the state. I think what you're going to find the differentiation is what are the focuses of the candidates. I'm not sure that there is a specific issue we disagree on, or at least I would say the three that were said I agree with. So.
We have time for one more, so let's go.
Thank you to the panel. It's been very informative. A question I have is that it seems like a lot of folks who want to run for office or are in office talk in terms of adding a new law, adding a new policy, adding a new rule, adding a new regulation. If you could remove something that's there, a law, a rule, a regulation, what would you remove?
That one's easy. I think recreational marijuana should be available to, as a controlled, thing that people can do in the privacy of their own home. And it should be controlled like, alcohol. But I think we should remove the criminalization of recreational marijuana. And then the state, much like alcohol, they've got the state stores, there is tax revenue to be brought in from recreational marijuana. And frankly, we are just leaving it on the table because New York's making $250 million a year from in tax revenue. New Jersey's making $60 million a year in tax revenue. Maryland's making $150 million in tax revenue. Ohio's making millions of dollars. Why are we leaving this money on the table? It's not like we're stopping people from actually doing it. We're just giving it to our neighbors. And I think it's foolish, and I think it is not a good use of policing funds and criminalization. And I think those should be removed. Oh, which way?
Who's next?
Going that way.
We'll go that way, sorry.
Oh.
Dyslexia.
All the way to the end, or?
No, you.
Oh, got it. It's a great question. I appreciate it. There's a couple things that I would remove. I'll just start with one though, based on a conversation I had just before this. And to give you a bit of background professionally, I work as a criminal justice researcher at the University of Pennsylvania's Carey School of Law. I study sentencing policy, I study decarceration, and generally improving our criminal justice system. I would particularly remove the gay panic defense, which I think is an affront. I think it's a terrible situation. What the offense, or rather the gay panic defense does, is a defendant to a crime can essentially say, I was scared because another person was gay, and thus I committed the crime. That is something that we have on Pennsylvania's law, and it's absolutely absurd. LGBTQ rights are under fire in Pennsylvania, and I want you to know that I will fight tirelessly to advance strong pro-LGBTQ legislation, including removing the gay panic defense. Particularly, there is one bill currently active, 1311, that would do so. It's not just something I would vote for, it's something I would co-sponsor and use political capital to lobby caucus leadership. Thank you.
Oh boy, there's a lot of things that gotta go in Harrisburg. One thing that definitely comes to the top of mind is the current way we fund our public education system. The formula has been ruled unconstitutional, and the legislature has neglected to do the work, and so that broken formula needs to be totally rehauled and meet the moment of every school district, all 500 of them across the state. I remember several years ago, I marched with Lower Merion High School students from Lower Merion High School all the way to Overbrook High School, and I did not see many of our elected officials there, but communities showed up, and I will continue to show up on that issue and so many others, but the broken education funding formula is definitely at top of mind. And I did also just want to, I know we were just finishing the last line of questions, but at the Democratic Forum in February, I did share my public support for a constitutional amendment to look at the uniform of how we tax, and express my support for this slate of bills that is supported by our state rep and our state senator currently to tax billionaires. So I have stated that support. I think I just wanted to put that out there again. Thank you.
Did you?
I would.
Megan.
Yeah. I'll be quick, and at the end there, Jason slipped in what I was gonna say, which is I would remove the uniformity clause so that we can have a fairer tax system, and then we can use those revenues to fund our, top priorities such as public schools. So that's what I would focus on. I feel very strongly that we need to have a more progressive tax system here. And while I have the mic, I just want to say a shout out to that Bill is my former boss, Rep. Ben Sanchez's bill. He's very strong on, he and both Rep. Gens are very strong on LGBTQ issues. And I'm very proud to have worked for both of them and be supportive of those issues as well. But that's a great question. It's just side note. I think that was a really good question because we always talk a lot about what we're adding and it's like, oh, what would we take away? So thank you.
Okay, we're right at 9 o'clock. So I think let's give our candidates another round of applause. Not just for showing up and giving really cogent answers, but managing their time so well.
Yeah, really.
And I think we all really should be impressed with that. So I'm impressed, because I didn't have to do anything other than keep notes. So we are now going to have our closing remarks. The candidates are going to get 3 minutes, and they're going to go in reverse order from the way they addressed us in the beginning. So, Megan, you're first.
This is our closing.
Hmm?
This is our closing.
Yeah, this is your closing.
Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And thanks again to the Civic for hosting. I want to close by just reiterating, and we talked a lot about this tonight, but we are all Democrats on this stage. And so for me, I kind of see the role of state rep as 3 different components, and this is kind of informed by my work in the Pennsylvania House right now. The first is legislation, and we've talked a lot about that tonight, and I think we have a lot of good policy ideas there. I would also just add to legislation, what is one's approach to legislating? I think that's really important, and I think, I tried to make clear and hope to make clear that my approach to legislating is really about talking with the community, talking with the stakeholders who know any particular issue we're talking about, not pretending to know everything. I don't. Okay, and I have no problem admitting that. I think that's important. The second thing that I think is important, and I talked a lot about this tonight as well, is really what I call the politics of it all, right? A state rep has the legislation, they have the politics. What are you doing to further advance Democrats across this state so that we can actually pass policies? And I have that track record of doing that. I have already, pledged that after May 19th, I will rally around whichever candidate wins, and I will help them win. But more importantly, because we are in a safer district, I'm going to use my time, resources, and energy to elect other Democrats in other flippable areas. And then the third thing that really does not get talked about, that I'm very passionate about and how I got my start in the Pennsylvania House, is constituent services. And honestly, what the heck even is that? I feel like, it's really the front lines of connecting our community with state services, breaking down barriers so that you can access services that you pay for with your tax dollars. Right? These are services you pay for. And whether it's helping a senior get a SEPTA senior pass so that they can ride for free, or it's helping someone modify their birth certificate so that they can change their name and be who they are. Or whether it's your commute on a state road and there's a pothole, who are you gonna call? Right? Mary Jo Daley's office so that she can fill that pothole. That is my start. That's who I am, is constituent services. That's what I do, and that is a huge edge I have against every candidate on the stage. I know how to run a legislative office, and that is important because when we do have a divided legislator, and sometimes legislation isn't getting done, what is your rep doing for you? They are providing those services. And if you can't tell, I'm very passionate about constituent services, and that is something that I will bring to the table and be responsive and have a great office. So thank you for coming out again. This is participating in democracy, and I hope to continue the conversation.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you coming tonight and listening to us and challenging us and asking us questions, because that's why your representative should be there for you. As we come to the end of the race, I want to focus on something I believe truly sets us apart as we sit here today. There is a qualitative difference between being an advocate in a position and helping from the outside, and being the person who is directly responsible for the decisions being made. Both roles matter, both have their place, but they are not the same. I can say that because I've been on both sides of that equation. For more than 15 years, I've been advocating for affordable access. I can't speak today, it's pretty long, but affordable, reliable access, healthcare access, standing up for protections, speaking out when those protections were threatened, and working to make sure people weren't left behind. That work matters, advocacy matters. But in my years on Borough Council and as mayor, I've been the person responsible for the decisions, the actual decisions. The one who had to take all the information, listen to the residents, weigh the consequences, and make the call, knowing it would directly affect people's lives, and live with the consequences of those decisions. That experience gives you a different perspective. It grounds you. It reminds you that at the end of the day, it's not about talking points, it's about outcomes. And that's exactly what I'll bring to Harrisburg, because going to Harrisburg is the next logical step in my lifetime of public service. I've spent decades working with this community, serving in local community, government, supporting local businesses, advocating for issues that matter, especially when it comes to healthcare. I understand how deeply these challenges affect families, seniors, and small business owners. I have been working alongside with you. Now I'm ready to take that experience and that commitment and put it to work at the state level. Our district doesn't need more rhetoric. It needs results. It needs someone who understands how policy decisions on things like healthcare, public transit, public safety impact real people, and who is prepared to step in and protect those interests from day one. Someone who knows how to listen, how to work with others, how to make responsible, informed decisions when it counts. That's the kind of representative I've been, that's the kind of representative I will be in Harrisburg, given the chance. So at that point, I'm gonna ask for your vote, I'm gonna ask for your support, and I would appreciate it very much. And thank you for being here tonight, and have a great night.
I'll begin my closing remarks with one word, and that word is access. Pennsylvanians deserve access to excellent public education, to excellent public transit systems, and to reproductive freedoms, access to an abortion, access to maternal health care and sexual health care. I'm here running for state representative because I believe fundamentally in access. We should have the opportunity to receive an outstanding education, to receive mentorship, support in our formative years, and to go on to receive additional education, to do great things. We should have opportunity to have reliable transit that moves our economy, that moves our community, that brings us closer to the city of Philadelphia. That's crucial. Access to maternal health care, to sexual health care, to abortion. All Pennsylvanians deserve the right to choose, the right to privacy. This is critical. This is what I'm fighting for. Moreover, I'm fighting for access to be, or rather, I'm fighting to be a representative who will be accessible. At the moment, I'm hosting my Solga for State truck tours. I'm the only candidate that's hosting regular, open to the public, free events throughout the district. Certainly, other candidates have hosted events. They are requiring a donation ask. I wouldn't want to pay $50 to speak with a candidate. I wouldn't want to pay $50 to speak with my representative. I'm hosting free truck tours. I'll have this upcoming Sunday at Cup of Gold in Narberth, right along Montgomery Avenue. You'll see me in the truck, you'll see me on the streets. That's how I am as a candidate, and that's how I'll be as a representative. It's not just access to systems. It's not just access to opportunity. It's access to a person who will speak for you, who will fight for you, who will fight to ensure that you have the access to vote in an open primary. I'm very proud to have stood up in February and to have said, there should be more than one candidate on the ballot in May. That's the system I want to have. That's the system I'm fighting for. I'm very proud to be here. And as I conclude, I'll rehash access. Access is number one, but number two is gratitude. I'm extraordinarily grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful to the other candidates. It really is an honor to be your competition. I'm grateful to the forum. Thank you very much, Rick. And to Robert, thank you for the process. I'm grateful to my team and for you all for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
I've been fighting for our communities locally, here in Narberth and Lower Merion, in the district, and in Harrisburg for nearly 20 years. And I've only been accountable to the people I'm helping. I hope you'll vote for me as the fighter you need, that we need in this moment for the 148th and for our state. I know what it takes to build coalitions and win. And as an advocate, I've been, yes, in the streets, yes, building movements, and yes, working from within systems, whether it's been when I've been in a state agency or as an advisor to legislators. I'm proud to have served on the transition teams for Governor Shapiro and our county commissioners, Neil McKeesha and Jamila Winder. I have the experience and the values and the work ethic to be an excellent state representative and do this for the right reasons. And I really honestly hope that you'll elect me in May 19th. I want to thank our moderators. Thank you to the NCA for hosting us this evening. I also want to, mention I'm in my 5th year on the Neighborhood Club of Ballakibwood board, and so I know what it takes to bring these events together, so thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's asked questions this evening, really thoughtful questions, and this is what democracy looks like. This is so important, this is fundamental to our conversations, and what you feel is, who you feel represents what you want to see out of your government. I want to thank the other candidates as well, and I also want to thank all my supporters, including my mother who's here, and former Representative Lita Cohen, former Senator Connie Williams, and so many other current former elected officials. I am having lots of events throughout the district, many meet and greets. Several people have been here tonight are having upcoming meet and greets which are free to attend. And if you'd like to have one in your living room or in a coffee shop, that's what we're doing. We have 5 weeks to go. There's a lot to get done. And I know that we're gonna pull through this with your support. So thank you to everyone who's a part of our democracy tonight and these weeks ahead. And let's go on to win in November and get things done. Good night.
Once again, thank you to all of our candidates. We are indeed fortunate that you're running. I don't think that having listened to all 4, I don't think that we can lose by any of you being elected. You really have impressed all of us, and we thank you for even stepping up and running for this office. That's very important. So give them a hand. I expect to see everybody in Borough Hall on primary election day. Let's see if we can set a record turnout.
See you all on Narberth Day.
Yes.
Yes. Come out to Narberth Day, and
May 2nd.
it's
Right there, take a look, it's a wonderful event. Lawrence. All right. Terrific. Yes. All right.
Pleasure. Take care.
Yeah.
Listen, we got everything.
Good to see you, Jim. Thank you, Pat.
I don't know.
Anytime. Although I just want a busy time for them. So I would expect them.